Hi, this is Narendra from Naren's Wisdom Talk. Today we are going to navigate to a new topic and new insight. Uh, Today I want to speak about India being a superpower. This has been projected by the media and it is in the collective Indian people's psyche that India will be a superpower. It is an expectation from populace of this country, of the masses of this country, who think India is already on the way to the great power status. So, on this point, I want to make a few points to note. Briefly, what is that superpower? Superpower means a country which exerts immense power across the world in economic, political, and diplomatic level, and soft power of uh, movies, culinary, art, so on and so forth. So, one particular geostrategist coined this term. He was a Dutch American uh, whose name was Spikeman. He coined this term after the Yalta summit, where three uh, largest economies, three largest victors of the World War II, they came together in the Yalta, Crimea today, and they had a conference to bifurcate or share the spoils of the war. After which they did, and there were two empires which had their own blocks, that is Warsaw Pact and NATO alliance. NATO is called the First World, it was called the First World, and Warsaw Pact of led by Soviet Union was second, and non-aligned countries were third world, like India in this case. So at times these alliances were very dynamic and fluid. So what is a superpower? Why it is called? So if you go back till 1800s, for past 1500 years, India and China, right from the Gupta period to before that, and to Mughal Empire period after the decline, till there, you had India had a was the world's one of the world's largest economies, along with Chinese, Ming China and King China. Ming dynasty and King dynasty both had their respective shares of being largest. India at one time at its peak had a total GDP, global economic output, of 28% to 30%. That is what an estimate says. And similarly, China had 32% global output at one point of time. After which there was a proto industrialization which was happening after the colonial adventurism of Europeans and colonialism they brought in, and they took all the wealth of the Orients and the East, and some of the countries like India, Indonesia, and other countries, and they financed them for their own country and built it up and made it uh, rich, but also importantly an industrial revolution which took place in England. From there it started the industrial revolution of 19th century. So why I am telling this is how superpowers, they encroach the lands. They used to encroach the land, loot the wealth, and build upon themselves. They used to expand their territories, empires. They were hegemonic in nature. So, from that time, from the time of Alexander the Great of Greece, Macedonia, where he set to conquer, defeated Darius of Persia, and also met a stiff resistance against Porus, to what you call as World War One, where Austro-Hungarian Empire and British, France, all these five great powers which were there, uh, they they dominated the world affairs. So later, after the collapse of these empires were degenerating again after the World War One, and then rose the Nazi Germany after the Weimar Republic in their country had been defeated, and Nazi party came to the power, and Hitler did unthinkable. He had over extreme ambition to be having the sole global leadership. So he conquered from Eastern Europe. He started with Czechoslovakia, Poland, and Romania. Then he went on to France, where the French were totally decimated, and Britain was also decimated by aerial bombardment by Luftwaffe, their impregnable kind of air force, headed by Air Marshal Goering. So these are some of the characteristics of these empires which have been existing. After that, you had Soviet Union and United States fight it out for the global dominance with their own alliances, where Soviet Union used to influence the Warsaw Pact and other third world countries under their side by toppling the government, right wing government, and installing a left wing puppet, the Iranian Revolution. Then later, United States in doing the same with left-wing dictators and governments, toppling it, and Afghanistan war thereby brought end to Soviets, was one of the prime reason, I would say, to the Soviets' downfall in 1991 after the dissolution, a disastrous dissolution, wherein Mikhail Gorbachev gave up his presidency. He was under house arrest briefly due to his reforms which were needed for Soviet Union, which was stalling after the Afghan invasion. And subsequently, United States emerged as a superpower, only superpower, sole superpower, wherein it had immense influence across the world in terms of military technology and whatnot. They had 800 bases around the world and still are a biggest superpower, but with a challenger on the horizon, that is China. Now we have to see what these superpower. Let us take, for example, United States. They had soft power during 1940s. They wanted to build a moral narrative, moral high ground narrative. They are the liberal democracy who values human life, and Hitler and other Axis power totally, totally were very non-empathetic, and they were very ruthless in their pursuit for power. That was the message. How they send those messages? They sent it through media, cartoons, and by radio, like Voice of America, which they started in 1942. Wherever there was no free press or no investigative journalism, uh, those areas there was a propaganda and there was a narrative set out by United States. This is a soft power. What is a hard power projection of economy? So while you're not just a big economy, you are projecting it to finance something beneficial in return it may come, which is a long-term benefit. Say for example, 1948 Marshall Plan, named after the United States Secretary of State George C. Marshall. Europe was promised to be. Europe was given a plan for reconstruction, and money was financed by United States for its rebuilding. Although Western Europe took it very happily, eastern part of it, where Soviet Union influence was there, the Warsaw Pact rejected it, saying that United States may influence even these countries. So by that you can see one thing in common, that is hard power, hard military power won the battle wherein United States pursued with Allied forces landed in Normandy and decimated uh, the defenses of Germany, similar to what Russia on the eastern front from Germany came after the non-aggression pact was broken. Russia was totally destroyed, but yet they regrouped, and they came back to attack Germany and they conquered. So this is hard military power. Soft military power, as I said, financing. From 1940s, even though United States was not involved in the war directly, they had a lend and lease program where they lent all the equipments, money also sometimes. They financed, they gave arms, ammunitions to Soviet Russia and other allies to fight Germany. Once United States was attacked, they jumped into the bandwagon and they also fought. And finally, they created the nuclear bomb under the uh, Manhattan Project, by one Dr. Oppenheimer, who was a renowned nuclear scientist and expert, and he uh, was later repenting on that what happened. But having said so, they dropped the bomb, and the Japan was fighting the Pacific theater with ferociousness. With all ferociousness, the war was going on, and Japan was decimated even before the bomb. And strategically important towns of Nagasaki and Hiroshima was bombed. This is hard military power. Post which we come back to 1991, where Soviet Union got dissolution of Soviet Union happened, and then Russian Empire was had collapsed by that time, and leaving United States to be the sole superpower. So they went into military adventurism by themselves in Iraq, then in Syria, then in Afghanistan. They stayed for 20 years and had a shameful withdrawal similar to what they had in Vietnam. So, having said that, what you learn? United States played both hard and soft ball. Hardball being hard economic projection like Marshall Plan to reconstruction of Europe and giving money to all the um, warring nations. Soft power, giving food, giving aid to all underdeveloped countries, exporting your culture, and giving, for example, Voice of America gave the world what is the alternate perspective in the authoritarian world. So this was the one of the aspect, and through films where Charlie Chaplin made fun of Hitler. He did a parody of Hitler in a funny manner, which was very Hitler got very offended by that, and that was the saying. But nonetheless, this was a message to offend Hitler. So they made such a caricature of Hitler there through uh, their soft power and culture. And you have McDonald's, you have Nike, you have all kind of brands built around it. So the brand building is also important. These are all the genuine, I mean, general characteristic of a very common characteristic of a hegemonic power, that is a superpower, which you call. But that is a conventional superpower which has been there. How can India be different? You are telling I want to be number one. I want to be number one. What is this number one? Well, by sheer GDP, you can be, because 4.5 trillion or something, being a fourth largest economy, doesn't make nothing much big difference when you are having a population of 1.4 billion and more than 700 million labor force who can work for you. That is nothing compared to what Japan is facing. A deflation for 20 years. They reached this 4.5 trillion to 5 trillion when I remember in mid 90s. Then they stopped there and they got up and they're down. They have been stagnated. So China and other countries overtook, and now India has overtaken. So these countries like say Canada Japan, and Australia. They are all developed countries, but yet they are not having a bigger GDP. Reason is either they are too small, or they don't have resources, or their population is in decline, busted. They don't have robust industrialization going on. They are deindustrializing like Germany has been saying, or the new competitors like China is giving new thoughts like upscaling the production of artificial intelligence, the electric EV vehicles BIDE, which is a new brand of the Europeans where they are dumping it. So these kind of things are happening. So India can build its own BYD. India can build its own TikTok where China is doing all these things. India is exporting that high end talents, but India is not able to produce and retain those talent because of lack of infrastructure, lack of money financing, and other issues which are plaguing. Like Lee Kuan Yew said, you cannot compare China with India. India is a different kind of species which has multiple languages. It's not homogeneous like Han Chinese, 80%, 90% Han Chinese. India is a multicultural, multi ethnic, chaotic democracy, but a democracy, functioning democracy. So, for this, you need a different kind of approach, which is you have to build from inside, your strength. You have to see your strength and weaknesses. Your strength is that you have to build on your talent. You have to retain your talent, which is going out. You have to build such an institutions which are good at doing R&D. For example, China is giving a has beaten United States in patent applications. So you can do that here. You can retain the brightest. You can even bring in the brightest if you have a world class uh, educational infrastructure there. Then you can do all those things. Then how can it be different? You have a spiritual basis for over 5,000 years. You have a very long history of spiritual ideas that can be used as a soft tool, soft power. Yoga, for instance, is already a uh, popular thing in West and also around the world. Yoga is a important export of from India, which is a soft power. You can enhance it. You can make it as United Nations have made a yoga day. They have made it thanks to the current government. They have taken this approach, and this can be in multifaceted. Many other many other spiritual aspects of your 5,000-year history can be exported. The idea can be a narrative, moral high narrative can be built. And you have to build your own brand of, say, media and social media. Say, China has a TikTok. You can have something of yours. You have to upskill the production of AI, which are the emerging technologies. These are all the points you have to do. And most importantly, defense. You are depending on few countries, which is very, very, very wrong policy. That is what you have to do within your country. You have to innovate, bring the bright minds, take the help of the allied. You have to build alliances. The recent standoff between India and Pakistan gave a stark warning. India did not have a strong clad alliance with any nation, any major nation, which stood firmly behind India's narrative. Although India was successful, as you say, to strike inside Pakistan, but military aside, you need a diplomatic win. That is a big win. Aside this, winning the hearts and mind is one of the art in the war. So this winning the hearts and mind of a global audience through diplomatic and soft power projection is very, very important. And lastly, you have to build an infrastructure which is necessary, and universal healthcare, and infrastructure. Infrastructure like world up to world class infrastructure where investors will be very happy, very pleased to come and invest into your country. Bring public private partnership and build everything. Build your cities which are looking like a shanty towns. This should be done in a gradual manner, but at a fast speed, steady pace. You have to do it. And having said that, your moral strength, your spiritual strength should be exported. It should be uh, inculcated. It should be imbibed in your own country, as well as then you can export it to other countries like high thinking. See, all these great Western thinkers and leaders, or be it like pop band or music band like Beatles, they were inspired by Indian spiritualism, so that you can export it. Already you had ISKCON. Some of the Indian gurus are going and giving lectures. That is okay, but you have to do it in a mass level. You have to do it in a non-religious. You should not give a color of religion, but in a non-religious way. You have to give most noblest of ideas which India has produced, and methods of reaching higher values for society, which is good. And you, whatever is there like what discriminating caste or all this can be reformed within, but you have to have a soft power to be a superpower. And lastly, the human development index. India is below 100 in all these parameters. Per capita income $2,000 per capita. China is $13,000 per capita. United States, live it. It's a OECD country, G7 member, and it comes under high income, very high income country, industrialized nation. So they have $83,000 per capita. That I am not comparing for now, but India can reach of a 10,000 threshold in the near to medium term. It can reach. This is the important thing. You have to be a moral beacon. You have to show a multicultural society can succeed, not being just number one by hegemonic way. You don't compare with all these hegemonies with as United States, which had interventionist policies since its inception of being a superpower from 1947 45. That is a different story. Britain is the most colonial minded, and it is predatory colonial superpower. So you cannot compare that. So India should be a real superpower where people look at, as Reagan quoted, a light on the city on the hill. This is what you have to be, a shining light in the hill. That is the moral compass. People can, global audience, global community will look up to you as a moral beacon. You need not start a war, but you can start a project like China is starting, but with proper financing method. China has started Belt and Road Initiative, similar to the Marshall Plan, which US had started, but in a larger level. A 3,000 kilometer road from Gwadar port in Pakistan to Xinjiang. So that is a great trade route, Silk route, which they want to shorten the trade route between Middle Eastern countries and energy. It is for energy security. Other Silk route, which is there for them, this is costing them $100 billion through Asian Infrastructure Development Bank, which they have started. They have plans to make this as an alternative for IMF. So I'm not living in a utopian world. In an idealistic world, India can. It is not that in an idealistic world, India can be very good, quote unquote, a moral beacon. You can make it, turn it into an idealistic world. In a world where everybody, not the might rules, might of the jungle. It's a jungle rule. Might wins That is not the right. Might is right. That is not the right thing. Who is right? Even if you are a mighty country, even if you have a immense power, you have a responsibility and you have a morality, moral high ground. This is what US tried to project when authoritarian regimes like Nazi regime was in the power, and they were in the conquering mode. This is what Reagan projected Soviet Union as an evil empire during his 80s, during the 80s, during his tenure in 80s. So this can be overcome by not branding any country unless they harm you or do something against your interest. You should be a non-interventionist, at the same time helpful country in the world, where you can help immensely through projects, through various food programs. So this is going forward. But what you can do now is build up your capacity. Use your labor force, largest, youngest labor force. Most of them are not job trained. They are not employable. Make them employable. Make them the job oriented. Make them the entrepreneur, and create factories and upscale the new emerging technologies, non-renewable sources, or sorry, renewable sources. You have to go for green energy, which China is already doing. So these are the areas you can be. You can be a moral beacon for the world to follow. Like uh, Apple founder was having a great time with Neem Karoli Baba, the saint found in India. So I would say you can export these kind of values and show to the world you can be a superpower but not hegemonic. That is the difference between you and the rest of the past superpowers and contemporary superpowers. With that, I take a bow. Salute. Let me see you in my next video. Until then, bye.